In the heart of Umuofia, a lively village nestled among rolling hills and thick palm forests in the eastern part of Nigeria, where the sun rose each morning to the sound of roosters crowing and women pounding yams in large mortars, there lived a woman named Nneka. She was known throughout the community for her warm smile and her skill in weaving colorful baskets that sold quickly at the weekly market. But behind that smile hid a deep sorrow that had plagued her for 10 long years. Welcome to Zoe's Ancestral African Folktales, a place where ancient wisdom, magic, and storytelling come alive. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a tale from our ancestors. Nneka and her husband, Obi, had been married with dreams of filling their compound with the laughter of children, but the gods seemed to have turned a deaf ear to their prayers. Year after year, Nneka's womb remained empty, and the whispers of the villagers grew louder. Some said she was cursed by an angry ancestor, others pitied her, offering herbs and charms from the local dibia, the traditional healer who communed with the spirits. Obi, a strong and hard-working farmer who tended vast fields of cassava and yam, stood by her side through it all. He would often say, using an old Igbo proverb, "The patient dog eats the fattest bone," reminding her that good things come to those who wait. But even Obi felt the weight of their childlessness, especially when his mother, Mama Ngozi, visited and dropped hints about taking a second wife to ensure the family line continued. Nneka prayed daily at the shrine of Ola, the earth goddess, offering kola nuts and pouring libations of palm wine, begging for a miracle. Then, one fateful rainy season, the miracle arrived. Nneka felt the first stirrings of life within her, and joy spread through the village like wildfire. The women ululated in celebration, and the men slaughtered a goat for a feast. When the day of delivery came, under the watchful eyes of the village midwife in their thatched roof home, Nneka gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him Kolechi, meaning "thank God," for he was the answer to their endless pleas. The village erupted in festivities that lasted 3 days. Drums beat rhythmically, flutes whistled tunes of triumph, and people danced around bonfires, sharing stories of how the ancestors had finally smiled upon Nneka. Nneka's joy knew no bounds. After 10 years of barrenness, God had heard her prayers. Her mother-in-law, who had once mocked her with names like empty pot, now held her tongue, though her eyes still held a glint of doubt. To Nneka, Kolechi was her world. He was everything she had ever wanted and more. She vowed to do everything humanly possible to make him happy, for he was her first fruit, the miracle that shamed her enemies. From the moment she held him in her arms, wrapped in soft Ankara cloth, she promised the spirits that no harm would come to him. The day Nneka and Kolechi returned from the midwife's hut, she gathered all the helpers in their compound, the young girls who fetched water and swept the yard, and the boys who tended the goats. Standing tall with Kolechi cradled against her chest, she warned them sternly. "This is a warning to all of you. As you can see, I am not smiling. I want you to be very careful when dealing with Kolechi. Do not touch him roughly or scold him, even if he cries or makes a mess. Leave him to me, I will raise him the way I want." Her voice was firm, echoing the authority of a mother who had waited too long for this blessing. Nneka wasted no time in enforcing her rules. One afternoon, when a young helper accidentally dropped Kolechi's feeding bowl, spilling some pap on the ground, Nneka fired her on the spot, ignoring the girl's pleas that it was a simple mistake. "That's how much I love him," Nneka would say to herself, watching Kolechi sleep peacefully in his cradle made from woven reeds. The villagers nodded in understanding, for in Umuofia, a mother's love was sacred, but some elders whispered that too much honey could spoil the child's teeth. As the weeks turned into months, Kolechi grew strong on Nneka's breast milk and the fresh fruits from the farm. Obi watched with pride, but he couldn't shake a subtle worry. He remembered his own childhood, running free in the fields, learning to climb trees and fish in the stream with other boys. A child must learn the ways of the world early, he thought, but he said nothing, not wanting to dim Nneka's happiness. Little did they know that the seeds of unchecked love were already taking root, promising a harvest that would shake the foundations of their home. The celebrations continued in smaller ways. Neighbors brought gifts of cloth and beads, and the dibia performed a naming ceremony, invoking the protection of the ancestors. Nneka held Kelechi close during the rituals, feeling his tiny heartbeat against hers, and she knew that her life had changed forever. But in her boundless devotion, she began to blur the lines between protection and possession, setting the stage for a story that would become a cautionary tale whispered around village fires for generations. As Kelechi grew older, toddling around the compound on chubby legs, his attachment to Nneka became as strong as the vines that wrapped around the ancient Iroko trees in the village square. The boy followed her everywhere, his small hands clutching the hem of her wrapper as she moved from the kitchen hut to the yam barn. While other children his age played in the dusty paths, chasing butterflies or rolling hoops made from old bicycle tires, Kelechi preferred to stay by his mother's side, babbling in a language only she understood. Nneka adored this closeness. She would scoop him up and carry him on her back, tied securely with a white cloth, even when she went to the stream to fetch water or to the market to sell her baskets. "My little shadow," she called him fondly, ignoring the amused glances from other women. Obi, returning from the farms with sweat glistening on his broad shoulders, often found them like this, Nneka cooking over the open fire with Kelechi perched nearby, demanding her attention with tugs and cries. By the time Kelechi turned 3, even Nneka began to notice his unusual dependence. He refused to play with the other children in the compound, who gathered under the shade of the mango tree to share stories or play games like okoso, tossing stones into the air. Instead, he trailed after Nneka, talking rapidly like a little rapper, his words stumbling out in a mix of Igbo and broken English. If she dared to sit with Obi in the evening, laughing at one of his jokes about the mischievous monkeys in the fields, Kelechi would stomp his feet, scatter his wooden toys, and scream, "Mama, come back." Obi would scold him on the spot, his voice stern like the crack of thunder. "Kelechi, behave yourself. You cannot always have your mother to yourself." But Nneka intervened every time, pulling the boy into her lap. "He's just a child, Obi. Stop scolding him." Obi shook his head, recalling the proverb, "A chick that stays too long under the mother's wings forgets how to fly." He urged her, "You encourage this behavior. He's not a baby anymore, let him learn some independence." But Nneka brushed him off with a laugh. "He's just showing how much he loves me. Don't be jealous." Nneka continued to adore her son in ways that puzzled even Obi. She did crazy things just to make him happy, even if they were to his detriment. While most mothers in Umuofia encouraged their sons to stand on their own 2 feet, sending them to fetch firewood or help with chores, Nneka was determined to keep Kelechi wrapped tightly in her arms. One day, after Nneka finished bathing in the small enclosure behind the house, using water from the clay pot and scrubbing with black soap scented with herbs, she walked back to the bedroom where Kelechi was playing on the mat with a toy carved from wood, shaped like a little drum. Nneka wasn't even wearing any clothes, her body still dripping with water, but she wasn't concerned. To her, Kelechi was innocent, a pure soul who could not yet differentiate between right and wrong. "Hello, my love, how are you doing today?" she smiled as she spoke, sitting beside him. Kelechi innocently dropped his toy and reached out, playing with his mother's breast, which he called her 2 oranges in his childish curiosity. "Mommy, what is this?" he asked, pointing at them. Neko smiled and asked, "Do you like them?" When he nodded, she didn't scold him. Instead, she allowed him to continue, laughing at his wonder. This became a pattern in their daily life. Neko's love knew no limits. One cool evening, as she sat on the bed playing with Kelechi, her young maid entered to take him for his bath. The moment Kelechi saw the maid, he started crying and screaming, "Mommy, I don't want her. She always pinches me when she's bathing me." Without confirming if her son's claims were true, Neko fired the maid on the spot. "Oh, madam, you can't just sack me like that. Your son is lying," the maid protested. "How dare you call my son a liar? Didn't I warn you to be careful with him? Get out of my sight, and I don't want to see you here by tomorrow," Neko shouted. That night, Neko took it upon herself to bathe Kelechi every day. As the days went by, their love for each other deepened. It was more than just mother and son. They spent time together, did everything together, and even slept on the same bed whenever Obi was away at distant farms or village meetings. The villagers began to notice, sharing stories at the palm wine joint about how Neko's boy was too attached, but she paid no mind. In her heart, all she wanted was for her son to be happy, blind to the gathering clouds of trouble. The years passed like the changing seasons in Umuofia, where the harmattan winds brought dry dust in December and the rains nourished the earth in June. Kelechi grew taller, his limbs lengthening like young bamboo shoots, but his dependence on Neko only intensified. By age 5, he had become a fixture at her side, helping, or rather, watching, her as she prepared meals of pounded yam and egusi soup, rich with melon seeds and fresh vegetables from the farm. The aroma of smoked fish and palm oil filled the air, but Kelechi's eyes were always on his mother, not the food. One fateful day, as Neko was having her shower in the outdoor bathroom enclosed by bamboo fences, Kelechi demanded to join her. The water cascaded from a bucket, cool and refreshing, and Neko didn't think twice before opening her arms wide to welcome him. From that day onward, it became their daily routine. They showered together under the open sky, laughing as soap bubbles floated away, and even dressed up together in the bedroom, with Neko helping him into his little shorts and shirts while he asked endless questions about her body. To her, it was innocent bonding, a way to keep him close in a world full of dangers like snakes in the bush or rival villagers. But one thing Neko wasn't aware of was that love, when unchecked, can lead to a disastrous end. As they continued spending time together, Kelechi started acting strange. He would often point at his mother's breast and other parts of her body, asking questions that went beyond childish curiosity. Neko never saw the need to caution him. To her, her son was being wise and smart, a sign that he would grow into a great man like the heroes in the folktales told by elders under the moonlight. One day, Neko's mother, Mama Ngozi, visited from a neighboring village. The old woman, with her wrinkled skin and wise eyes that had seen many harvests, couldn't help but notice the uncanny relationship between mother and son. She watched as Kelechi clung to Neko during the visit, refusing to let her talk freely. "Neko, what is this I'm seeing? You shower with your son. Do you know the danger of what you are doing?" Mama Ngozi asked, her voice laced with concern. "Mama, he is just a child. He doesn't even know the difference between right and wrong," Neko replied, waving it off. "You are spoiling this child. This is very wrong. Don't do what you will regret later," Mama Ngozi warned, invoking an old proverb, "What the child sees, the child does, but what the child does without correction becomes a habit." From the living area, Obi shouted, "Mama, tell her. I'm tired of talking." But Neko ignored them both, convinced her love was pure. By the time Kelechi turned 15, the innocent attachment that once seemed harmless had transformed into something disturbing. He was no longer the shy boy who hid behind his mother. He had become bold, aggressive, and territorial, especially when it came to Nneka. His school teachers in the village secondary school complained about his attitude, particularly towards male staff. He would talk back, challenge their authority, and even fight them over minor corrections. "He's just strong-willed," Nneka said dismissively whenever a report of Kelechi's bad behavior was brought to her attention. However, this was only the beginning of more trouble. Kelechi had developed a habit of following Nneka wherever she went. When she visited the bustling market with its stores of yams, fabrics, and spices, or attended private meetings with the women's group to discuss community matters, Kelechi insisted on accompanying her, staring sternly at anyone who dared to speak too long with her. The villagers whispered, "That boy guards his mother like a jealous husband," but Nneka saw it as protection. One afternoon, the family's neighbor, Mr. Okonkwo, a jovial man who farmed nearby, made a casual remark that turned into a nightmare. "Oh, Nneka, as beautiful as ever," he said cheerfully while passing by their compound. Kelechi, who had been standing nearby, froze. His expression darkened, and before anyone could react, he lunged at Okonkwo, shoving him against the mud wall. "Don't ever talk to her like that," he shouted. Obi rushed out and pulled Kelechi away. "What is wrong with you?" he yelled. But Kelechi said nothing, clenching his fist in anger. That night, Obi sat Nneka down. "Nneka, can you see it now? This boy is not acting like a son, he's acting like a man fighting for his wife. He's just protective of me." "It's not as serious as you are making it," she replied. "It is serious," Obi snapped, slamming his fist on the table. "He needs discipline, and you need to stop coddling him." But Nneka didn't listen. Instead, she only deepened the bond, praising Kelechi when he brought her flowers from the bush and called her his queen. Obi wasn't pleased, feeling helpless as his advice fell on deaf ears. In Umuofia, where the community gathered for festivals like the New Yam Festival, with masquerades dancing to the beat of ojin gongs and people feasting on roasted meat, the bond between Nneka and Kelechi grew even tighter. By age 10, their routines had become inseparable. Every morning, as the first light filtered through the palm fronds, Kelechi would join Nneka in the shower, the water splashing on their skins as they talked about dreams and stories. Nneka would lather him with soap, and he would do the same for her, his hands exploring with a curiosity she dismissed as normal. "Mama, why is your body different from mine?" he would ask, pointing at her curves. "It's how the gods made us, my son," she would answer, smiling, never thinking to set boundaries. They dressed together in the dim light of the kerosene lamp, Nneka wrapping her wrapper around her waist while Kelechi pulled on his clothes, mimicking her movements. To outsiders, they lived like partners in a dance only they understood, but the villagers began to raise eyebrows, sharing concerns at the women's meetings. Kelechi's territorial nature showed in small ways at first. At school, he fought a boy who innocently complimented Nneka during a parent visit, saying she looked nice in her beaded necklace. "Don't talk about my mother," Kelechi yelled, punching the boy until teachers separated them. When the report came home, Nneka defended him. "Boys will be boys," she said to Obi, who frowned deeply. "This is not normal, Nneka. You're blinding yourself." Obi tried to intervene more. He set rules, forbidding Kelechi from following Nneka to the market every time, demanding he spend time with his peers playing football in the village field or learning to farm. But every time Obi enforced a rule, Nneka would undo it, sneaking Kelechi along or making excuses. For the first time in their marriage, Obi felt powerless, his warnings like water on a duck's back. One afternoon, Nneka was alone in the living area, sorting laundry, wrappers, shirts, and cloths washed in the stream, when Kelechi walked in with a notebook clutched to his chest. His movements were suspicious, as though hiding something. He quickly slipped the book into his school bag. "Kelechi, what is that?" Nneka asked casually. "Nothing, Mama, just school stuff," he replied, avoiding her eyes. She suspected something fishy but let it slide, her love clouding her judgment. However, one fateful evening while tidying Kelechi's room, her hand brushed against the edge of the notebook hidden under his mat. She hesitated, but curiosity won. As she opened it, she saw what she never imagined. The pages were filled with disturbing, obsessive words about her. "My queen," one page read in bold letters. "No one can take her from me. I'll honor her always. My father one day so I can spend the rest of my life with my queen." Nneka's hands trembled as she read. She quickly closed the book and convinced herself that Kelechi's love for her was immense, even as doubt crept in. Deep down, a whisper of fear told her she was wrong, very wrong. The blurring of boundaries continued. Kelechi started bringing her gifts, wildflowers from the forest or shiny stones from the stream, and calling her pet names. Nneka laughed and praised him for being sweet, ignoring Obi's growing frustration. The village elders, during their meetings under the udala tree, discussed the matter subtly, warning that the river that forgets its source dries up. But Nneka clung to her beliefs, convinced a mother's love could never harm. As Kelechi entered his teenage years, the cracks in their family began to show like fissures in dry earth during the harmattan. At 15, he was tall and broad-shouldered, resembling Obi in build but with Nneka's soft features. His behavior at school worsened. Teachers reported him challenging authority, especially male teachers who he saw as threats. "He's just strong-built and passionate," Nneka dismissed, but the reports piled up like harvested yams. Kelechi's obsession manifested in his constant presence. He accompanied Nneka to the supermarket in the nearby town, where modern stores mixed with traditional markets, glaring at vendors who chatted too long with her. During private women's meetings, he waited outside, his eyes fixed on the door. One day, a male relative visited and hugged Nneka in greeting. Kelechi's face twisted in rage, though he held back. The incident with Mr. Okonkwo was a turning point. After the shove, the neighbor complained to the village chief, but Nneka downplayed it. Obi confronted her again that night, under the stars. "This has to stop. He's acting possessive, not protective." Nneka refused to see, deepening the bond instead. Things took a drastic turn one evening in the kitchen. Nneka was preparing dinner, humming a tune, while Obi read a newspaper at the table. Kelechi stared at her with admiration. "Mama," he said softly. "What is it?" she asked, sitting beside him. For a moment, he was silent, then blurted, "I love you, Mama. I mean, I truly love you." Nneka froze. "Of course you do, I'm your mother." He shook his head. "No, it's more. You're the only woman I've ever loved. We are meant to be together." Her heart raced, she stood, shaking. "What are you saying?" Before she could move, he grabbed her arm. "You feel it too." She broke free, recalling the notebook. Grabbing her phone, she called Obi. "Come home now. It's Kelechi, something is wrong." Kelechi slammed the table. "Why call him?" He's trying to take you from me. When Obi arrived, Kelechi lunged at him. She's mine. After a struggle, Obi subdued him. Nneka stood frozen, tears streaming, realizing her blind love had nurtured something dark. Thanks for watching Zoe's Ancestral African Folktales, where the wisdom of our ancestors lives on. If you enjoyed this story, drop a like, leave a comment with your favorite part, and share it with someone who loves great tales. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next journey into African folklore.